So, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 released back in February, and since then, it's garnered exceptional feedback and praise. The studio behind the game, Warhorse, released their first game, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, in 2018, and their story is incredible. Back in just 2010, they didn't even have a studio. Just an idea about a medieval RPG. They went to publishers, got rejected by all of them, and only after crowdfunding proved that the concept could be successful did they finally get the chance to make their first game. The first game had teething problems, but the studio took lessons from that experience and have now released one of the greatest RPGs of all time, and one of the favourites for Game of the Year in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Their story is remarkable, and despite the difficulties they encountered, they stuck to their vision, refused to compromise, and are now one of the most successful gaming studios at this current time. I managed to get an interview with Sir Tobi, Warhorse Studios global PR manager and game developer. In this interview, we discuss everything from Warhorses Origins to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's success, to the challenges they faced, games they drew inspiration from, and what Sir Tobi thinks of the AAA game studios of today. We even talk about Sir Tobi's reaction to online negativity and Warhorse's future. So without further ado, let's get right into the interview.
So yeah, I want to sort of get just a brief background of Warhorse Studios, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, how that happened.
Well, that's a good question because all the odds were against us in a way. So everything started, I guess, with Daniel Vavra, who was working on the Mafia series, and he had in mind that he wanted to do this medieval game with knights and castles and whatnot, but wanted to do it more authentic than what you usually get, even in movies and whatnot. So he decided the idea of Kingdom Come Deliverance was there before the studio Warhorse Studios was found, which at the end he got to that point where he gathered some veterans of the Czech gaming industry, and in 2011 or so they created the Warhorse Studios. But then the problem was that they created this vertical slice, which shows, well, it already had some kind of gameplay, so they had something tangible to show to publishers by that time. But when they were traveling the world with it, none of them wanted to actually invest in that project. It was before PlayStation 4 and Xbox One release, so it was a time where the big publishers were convinced that console gaming is dead and that everything is focused on Facebook games, and single player games are not interesting anyway because no one plays them. And so kind of the same story over and over again. But luckily at the end they found an investor. He was outside the gaming industry, so he wanted some kind of tangible proof. There was this new platform, well, not that new, but still kind of new, Kickstarter, and that was a way how to confirm that the idea that Dan and team had by that time was something people actually wanted to play and actually wanted to invest in. So when people vote with their purses, it's a pretty good argument. Luckily, I think we wanted 300,000 British pounds. They got that in a day or so, in 24 hours, and at the end had 1.1 million or 1.2 million, something like that. So that was, of course, this was just a drop on the hot stone. That was not like financing the entire studio, but at least this was proof enough that there is a concept, that there is interest, and that was all in 2014, and that's where I think Kingdom Come actually was born, or where the studio Warhorse Studios was actually born. It was founded earlier, but the work from scratch started from 2014, and from that point on, it was really showing that the promises we gave to the people were valid and true, and we did constant alpha. We dropped alphas and betas and showed them really wrecked stuff, and had those community videos saying like, yeah, hey, we had to throw the entire combat away. It was not good enough, so we are doing it again, and so on. So this community, I think this community first approach was born there, that we tried to really like open-minded and open generally towards the audience. And I hope and believe that this still sticks to us and still follows us even in the campaign of KCD2. So yeah, from one guy with an idea over Kickstarter, over KCD1 to now KCD2. And in the life cycle of Warhorse Studios, we had 2 sink or swim situations, and that was the Kickstarter. If that would have failed, then KCD would have never been worked on. And then the release of KCD1, because honestly, a day before release, we also didn't know what to expect really, and then it hit like a bomb. And yeah, from that point on, we could call that a success story.
I wanted to ask about the design of both Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2 focuses on hyper-realism and at times difficulty, right? Like it's supposed to be hard and then you improve. Was there ever any temptations in the studio to simplify or make it easier at any times?
Well, I probably am not a fan of this calling it hyper realistic. What we tried really hard is to make it authentic. I think that's a better word. We tried really hard to, if we are showing a particular thing in the game or talking about a particular topic, to make it as authentic as possible, or at least as plausible as possible. The way how you're asking, we had this, we have this, still do this everyday struggle between what is realistic and authentic versus what is actually fun gameplay. And I think the frame is realistic or historic, with this taking place in Bohemia. The many locations actually, or all of the locations really existed. Many of the characters really existed. The overall story or plot also existed, but the drama in the game, or the things that you actually are doing, they are universal and they're human. It's a story about love and passion and becoming of age, of losing, of sacrifice, and so on and so on. So this is more like a, well, that is definitely a fictional part in there. But when it came to really balancing those things, we never sacrificed. I hope we never sacrificed fun and gameplay and accessibility for historical accuracy or authenticity. At the end of the day, we really knew and have this premise that we are first and foremost working on a video game, not some live sim thing, and also not some educational thing. The educational part, or it being historical, is a bonus side effect on the game and the topic we are covering, but that's not necessarily what we are aiming for. We're definitely not trying to educate someone.
With the amount of depth that's in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I know Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is as well, but the sequel has so much depth. Like you have, quests that, like, if you did something before, you have dialogue programmed for that, and the world is so detailed. Like, what was the most challenging part of this sequel, like, that you put in there, would you say?
Well, I think the answer that every dev would give you in the world, every studio, is finishing. And I know that's a very unsatisfying question, but answer. But like, finishing and releasing the game is always a huge problem, and it's full of tripping stones and problems, and it's really hard to get it finally out there and to make sure that everything runs smooth and is prepared. But if you want to have a specific thing of the game itself, I'd say the city of Kuttenberg is in itself the biggest challenge we had in the game. First of all, and then from different aspects. So first of all, it has, like, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, something in between of NPCs, all with their daily cycles and whatnot. So you have a huge amount of AI going around there, and all those like calculations, characters randomly meeting each other on the street. They then randomly interact somehow with each other. This is not pre-scripted. They are all really kinda freely choosing how to react and what to do. So that's interesting. And especially if you consider that in KCD1 we weren't able to have as many people on screen as we do now in KCD2. The biggest village or place in KCD1 was Ratai. That's if you want to be strict, then it's just a big village in a way. But Kuttenberg is really a relatively cosmopolitan, metropolitan city. So it's really huge. Then again, another aspect, so we have the NPCs and you need to fill it with interesting stuff. So you need to have the random encounters and you have the different shops and quests and whatnot to make it interesting. What we don't want is just some stage. We want, if we show something, it must be interesting and plausible again and make sense and invite you to discover and explore the town. And since this place is really existing, it's a real city here in the Czech Republic. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so you can visit it if you like. We had to, and we wanted to keep it lifelike, we had to rebuild the city as it is right now today. However, it modernized throughout the ages, of course. So we had to build it back into the year 1403, which means that we had to do a huge amount of archaeological work. We had to talk to many museums and universities and the archives in town and the region and so on. So there's a huge amount of historical work or historian work that went into developing that and creating that, to see how it looked like, how the people behaved, for instance, back in the days. That turned out to be the hardest challenge. It's relatively, no, I wouldn't call it easy, but it's easier to find out how the nobility and how castle life worked and so on. But it's relatively hard to find out how everyday Joe behaved and what his problems were and what his habits were and so on. But all in all, as I said, I think Kuttenberg is by far the biggest challenge we had to, or the biggest single thing in the game that was most challenging.
Someone mentioned to me that you'd seen one of my videos where I called it a gaming miracle. Primarily in that you managed to satisfy two sets of fans. The first ones who loved the first game and they still love the second, and then a new set of fans. What did you learn from Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, would you say, that was so important to change or tweak, or like what did you learn?
So exactly as you said, our devs are everyone. It's not like only the marketing team is watching YouTube videos, but pretty much everyone in the studio is, of course, watching reviews, watching streams, watching the Reddits and everything. And we tried really hard to learn from the feedback from KCD1. And there was a ton of it. Some of the stuff was really something where we figured out that something that we planned looked better on paper than it then actually looked in the game. So, for instance, the combos in the KCD1 combat, they were all cool and based on real historical martial arts and whatnot, but they were super hard to execute. So it turned out that people liked them, but rarely used them. So there was something where we said, okay, the combat probably is the single thing that was overhauled most, I would say. But generally, we took really every single aspect of KCD1, really everything, and try to improve it or make it better or think deeper or put more developers on it and so on. We really tried hard to see where people struggled more. We checked mods, for instance, which of the mods were downloaded most, which, for instance, the unlimited saving was one of them. However, there we decided to stay stubborn because we like the saving system. We think it makes sense to have at least this minimum investment of drinking that potion so that you can save. However, lessons learned was that in KCD1, when you needed the Savior Schnapps most, the save potion, it was hardest to come by. It was too expensive, you rarely got any, and it was just a pain in the ass. And then in the end of the game, when you didn't need to save that much anymore because you were pretty powerful, then you had plenty of them. And now in KCD2, we wanted to make it way easier to get those. You can brew them from the get-go. They're easier to buy and cheaper and whatnot. But still, it gives this little, at least this tiny split second of, hey, can I invest this? Should I save now? Should I rather go to the next village? Should I do this or should I do that? And we like this because we believe that it enhances this role playing and not stress feeling, but the seriousness of the end of the current situation. So that was the reason why we kept stubborn in that and want to keep that.
I know with Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, I think you had 110 employees, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 around 250. I recently did an interview with someone who worked at Bethesda Game Studios, and basically they explained how the Skyrim team had around 100 developers, and now Starfield's got like thousands. And are you guys at all worried about that? Of like, how do you maintain growth whilst maintaining that closeness?
So that's a struggle, of course, definitely. Also, it's important to say that at the release of KCD1, we were 110, which means that when I started in 2014, we were like 35 or something like that. So it grows slowly but steadily, and in 4 years of me being there, we grew to we hired another 80 people or so. So, and the same goes for KCD2, of course. We released with 110, and then slowly but steadily grew bigger and bigger. Of course, there's a problem now that when I'm coming to the office and see the new faces, I don't know everyone's names anymore, and of course there's more cooks on the dish, and this can we have a very flat hierarchy structure at Warhorse Studios, which means that everyone can raise their voice and everyone can say that's crap and I think that's a bad idea and so on. We don't have this senior level decides and then everyone else has to just follow that. This means that the processes take longer because more people can actually like give impact and feedback to stuff. On the other hand, I think the results are then better. So there's like a pros and cons situation, but definitely more people means automatically that you have to slowly get more corpo. I don't mean this in a bad way, but you need more HR, you need more infrastructure within the studio that you don't need if you're just 20 people, because you just say, hey guys, pizza today, and then you just go. So of course this is a thing, but I strongly believe that we still, even with the 250, and we already outgrew that, so we are even further than that now, slowly but steadily. I think with KCD1 we were a bunch of punks trying a video game together. Of those 110, maybe 20, 30 or so ever worked on a video game before. The rest were just newcomers. Now we are still punks, but more organized than before. So I strongly believe that we are still really able to keep this family level and this friendship level alive. And yeah, it's not, the people at Warhorse Studios are not anonymous. It's for me hard to remember their names, but that we have a very good, very close relationship. That is something that I heard is not always common, unfortunately.
My next question I wanted to ask was about other AAA studios and just sort of get your opinion. You know, when you were making Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, the risks you take, like having the save your snaps, you know, making things difficult at the beginning. I mean, a lot of people consider that risky, right? Like, it's too much, it's outside the thing. And we've seen a lot of games recently, like Assassin's Creed Shadows or Avowed, and they're sort of like lacking. Like, I mean, what's your take on the AAA studios at the moment compared to yourselves?
I don't know, really. I think I can only talk for ourselves, and I can say that instead of us hunting for some trends and following some guidelines and checking boxes, I think the studio at Warhorse Studios is really set together. Well, it's a bunch of gamers trying to make a game that they would love and they would play and they would appreciate, and that's how they gather the ideas for the first game. There was not that much, well, we shared the alphas and betas and we tried to get that feedback, but still it was all kind of difficult for the people to feedback something that they haven't played before. Now with KCD1 out, we could take the feedback from the people, but still it's a game from gamers for gamers kind of situation, and not and we are not like hired mercenaries that are working on a game someone told us to do. So maybe that's a difference to the bigger studios, maybe not, I don't know. I've never been in a studio like that, but I can at least tell you that how we work and how we understand the video game industry.
Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 recently surpassed 3 million copies sold, and I'm sure that's growing. But fantastically, I saw that Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 just hit 10 million copies sold.
Yeah.
I think it was at 8 when the second one dropped. So obviously, that's had a direct relation. Did you guys expect this level of success when you were making KCD2?
Absolutely not, honestly. I mean, we expected that KCD2 will be a great game, but for the longest time we were like, oh god, that's a shit game, or what will the people say? And it took it. But I think it's the same for every creative person in the world. You're painting your picture, you're writing your text, you're composing your music, and for the longest time you think it's utter crap. But at some point, someone tells you, you know what? That thing is actually pretty good, and then you slowly but steadily start to believe it. That point was for us in January, when very early, I think it was like January 8th or something like that, when the first preview feedback came in from press, when they had the review code for 1 month ahead, and they were able to give their first preview or first impressions video like 10 days in. And that was the point where we said, oh my god, they really love it. It's like we have something really good on hand. So it's not like we didn't trust ourselves, but you know, this outside validation feels just you get confidence with that. However, the situation with KCD1, that is definitely surprising, because before KCD1 released, I was with our CEO. We were driving to the publisher in the car back in the day, I can remember, and we were talking like, okay, we are releasing, so 1 million copies, that would be great. When do we hit that? And it was like, oh, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 2 years. So there were like these huge numbers floating around, again, the confidence thing. And then we hit the first million, I think, in the first week or something like that. So there was a huge surprise. That's one thing, but that KCD1 keeps staying so successful even years after release. It released in 2018, now it's 25, so 7 years later, it still sales like hotcake. It's really amazing. And the announcement of KCD2, of course, did again skyrocketed the sales of KCD1. It was in huge sales, so it was also cheaper. So hey, giving a $5 for a video game, why not? Of course. So there's also other reasons for that, but generally, we the sales grew so quickly of KCD1 that I missed the 9 million mark. So we would have announced it, of course, that we surpassed the 9 million, but we just missed it because we are in the KCD2 preparations and whatnot, and all of a sudden we said, oh my god, we have 9.8 million or something. Like, when did that happen? So yeah, that was interesting, and it just KCD1 managed to become somewhat of an evergreen, or this, you know, this game that whenever it's in sales, people are just buying it to have it in the library. It's like this classic. Oh, I just want to, maybe I will play it at some point. So it's cool that it got this, not legendary status, but this classics or something, modern classic status that quickly.
I just wanted to touch on the character of Henry. Obviously, it's so against the grain, right? Normally, we're some superhero with superpowers. Like, how did you settle on that character in general, with the accent and everything?
There was also a common feedback from publishers and press back in the days, like, what's so special about this unspecial person? And that was exactly the point. He is so special because he is this everyday Joe. He's this you and me. He's this bloke who barely is able to hold a sword, and really, in KCD1, everyone insults you and beats you, and at the point where you think, okay, now I can fight back and I can actually do something, the game ends. So in KCD2, of course, you are already someone, but I like to explain it like, in KCD1, Henry grew from boy to man. And now in KCD2, he grows from man to warrior, because all of a sudden you're on the big stage, and it's not some local bandits anymore, but kings and high nobility and armies, and there's war going on, and there's like deep like emotional situations and crossroad decisions and whatnot. So that's the evolution between those two games. But Henry is still this regular bloke. He's still this person who, when he arrives somewhere, the people don't give a shit about you. They just don't greet you like the superhero who just came to save our lives. He's just this regular bloke who got into unregular situations, and I think that makes him so relatable and so sympathetic, that he's like this regular guy who could have, I mean, of course, his entire plotline is fictional. Henry is fictional as well, and this from rags to riches, or this like becoming a man, like the success story is highly unlikable in the Middle Ages. It's not impossible, nothing is really impossible, but it wasn't that easy, of course, in the Middle Ages. But then again, as I said, it's a video game, so you have to have some kind of progress and whatnot. But still, he's very relatable, and that makes him stand out, I guess.
It's funny now because he has become a hero. Like, you know, he's all over the flyers. Can you make Kingdom Come Deliverance, just both the games? Obviously, I'm assuming you have a list this big of things that you want in the game. Like so many features. When do you know when you need to cut ambition for success? And was there anything cut from Kingdom Come Deliverance 2?
Absolutely. And this is one big learning from the dev point of view between KCD1 and KCD2. In KCD1, we had this situation where everyone was dropping cool new ideas, and we all said, oh, that's great, let's put it into the game. And we did that for such a long time that in the end we run out of time to stabilize everything and make it run well and so on. We postponed, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, like really incredible amount of times, and we just couldn't postpone anymore. We had to release the game. The result was, though, that while on PC it was okay, on consoles it didn't run really stable for a month or so. So we had to constantly fix and patch and whatnot. In KCD2, we said we cannot have the situation again. This cannot happen anymore. We don't want to be stigmatized as the buggy devs who's releasing broken games. So we wanted to make sure that we will put less into the game, but we'll make sure that it will run smoothly. The put less into the game didn't work out really. At the end of the day, we have a game that is almost twice as big as the first game, but really early in development. And I'd say that the entire studio, we had like the DLCs and Royal Edition for the first game in 2018. And I think around 2019, in June or something like that, in summer, the entire studio switched into KCD2, and very early, already in 2019, maybe 20 latest, we already had a list of things where I said, okay, this is below the line, we can't do this and we won't do that. And the reason we did that is because, as I said in the beginning, we were way more careful than we had to maybe. But on the other hand, the result, or what resulted of that, is that the game ran so great on the day of release, and we were able to send out review code a month before release. So there's pros and cons, of course. I know people are always sad when I tell them what was scratched from the game, but you need to see the plus side. The plus side is that, for instance, 60 frames on console, that was something we never expected. This was a breakthrough moment, a eureka moment, pretty much, like, I don't know, half a year before release, because our programmers were still on optimizing the game, and all of a sudden they found some clue, some shortcut, something to make it run so smooth. And they only could do that and dig so deep into optimization because they had their hands free at that point already and were able to invest the time into that. So, as I said, people need to see the plus sides, even though it's sad that, I don't know, for instance, I don't know, maybe like jousting or whatever, something. We wanted to have like a bard mini game where you could play as a bard, where to like compose music and stuff. But as I said, those things are all nice to have. But at the end of the day, I think what we released in February was the game we always dreamt of since Kickstarter. So the Kickstarter idea, the Kickstarter promise, is what we were able to physically deliver now with KCD2. Nothing bad about the first game, but there were shortcomings and we had to try a lot of stuff and trial and error and whatnot. But KCD2 is really the game we always wanted to make.
In regards to rewards or awards. I know you put in for the Guinness World Book of Record for like the longest script, and a couple of others. Obviously, you guys are. I'm assuming you're going to be in there for Game of the Year, a nominee. How important is that stuff to the studio?
Well, it has several. So theoretically, it's not important at all. Practically, it is very important, of course. First of all, of course, when you do a game as a developer, you want to, if you get a reward, again, it's a confidence thing. You want to be proud. You want to tell your grandma, grandpa, hey, or anyone pretty much, that the product you are working on or the game you worked on or delivered or whatnot, that this was so successful that someone feels the urge to give you an award for that. This just feels great. When you played soccer or basketball or whatever and you get this little trophy, you're just very happy you have it. On the other hand, maybe if I don't know if you actually win GOTY or some of this like really huge titles, awards, then this could have, of course, impact also financially. This could mean that more people buy the game or that you get more exposure on media and so on. But we as devs, at least we at Warhorse Studios, we are not making the games for the awards. So we are not trying to, at all, we are not trying to fine-tune the game so that we are more likely to win a award or something like that. This is really not the case. We are still working only on the game that we like to do and that we think is cool. And if someone likes it so much that they believe that we should get a little prize for that, we'll take it. But it's not the main goal, of course. But it's nice. I would love it. On the other hand, we are also not, how do you call it, disillusional or something. So it's not like we don't want to jinx it, of course. Nominations would be great, but we are not expecting anything.
And just to touch on reviews, obviously your reviews were stellar from pretty much everyone. There was a couple of reviews that were sort of poor or like, average. And some of the things that were said in the articles were like, oh, I didn't watch the cutscenes because I was on my phone. I was, not really paying attention. Does that bother you guys at all? Like, are you aware of that stuff, or is it not a big deal?
Of course it bothers us. Of course, when someone says something not so nice or doesn't understand what you're trying to do, it doesn't feel pleasant. But at the end of the day, in all honesty, what counts most is what the people say. What, for instance, the Steam reviews say. What the like people's choice and answers and feedback says. Because those are the people who are buying the games, playing the games, supporting the studios and whatnot. I think overall, in KCD1, for instance, the reviews were all over the place from 5s to 10s. There was everything in there, and everything disliked and liked something else. It was really hard to pinpoint what the problem actually was there. The only thing that everyone unitedly agreed on was that the game was buggy. So that was the one thing we knew, okay, that is a problem. We should not repeat that. We did that again, stayed true to ourselves and to what we believe in and to what we think is cool and whatnot. And now we have almost perfect score, in my opinion. When I was joking with one of our lead designers about where we think we will land, both of us said, yeah, I guess so 88 could be it. And it's interesting that we both hit the right number. But it's 1,000 people, 1,000 likings. Not everyone likes everything, and that's fine and that's okay. And I think that's the way how it should be. And we are also, of course, reading the negative stuff and of course taking the negative reviews and feedback and see if any of those things is substantial and constructive and can help future project. If yes, then we're taking it in. If we don't think, then we ignore it.
And then for Warhorse now, obviously you're at the peak now in terms of like success. The Kingdom Come Deliverance is your own stories. So, it's based on real life, like you said, Henry, and everything's from your idea. We've seen other studios like CD Projekt Red, for example. They've taken the cyberpunk lore or they've taken the Witcher lore. Do you guys think you'll stick to making your own stuff, or do you think you'll branch out?
Oh, that's a very tricky question. I think So first of all, we have still the DLCs and these kind of things in front of us. So we have plenty of work with KCD2. What the future brings is still something we are not completely agreed on. So we will see where that goes. But I think the one thing that we unitedly within the studio agreed is that we believe that we are really good in RPGs and that RPGs should be our way. I can't promise you nor decline that we will stay in the KCD universe, but I can definitely tell you that it's highly likely that we will stay true to RPGs.
Obviously, you don't need to answer this question if you don't want to. Before the game even came out, the thing with Henry and Hans, it was all over Twitter. An option in the game, right? An option that you don't have to make. What do you guys? What do you take on that? Like this general, because it happens with every game, not just Kingdom Come. It happens with every game. There's this sort of anger, I guess, spreading to try and bring something down before it even gets up. I mean, what's your take on that?
Nothing really, honestly. It was annoying. It was absolutely useless, and people were judging something before the game came out. So when they were judging on rumors and they were overly quickly believing stuff that someone said somewhere without double checking and whatnot. The original idea of why first of all, it's an RPG, it's a choice, and if you want to do it, go for it. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. That's it. But the idea to have that resulted or originated from fan feedback from KCD1. When KCD1 released, some fan fiction started to grow around that, and people were having fun painting those pictures and thinking of alternative stories and whatnot. And Daniel Vavra, our creative director, he liked it and said, hey, you know what, why not? If you want an option, you get an option, and there you go. It doesn't change anything in the game. It doesn't influence the game in any way. It's just a way to play the game, and that's I think generally if you have more options to choose from and role play if you wish, then go for it. We don't lecture you on anything. We don't force you into anything. It's just there if you want it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting because I remember I saw something about Musa, like it was all over. And then I got the game, I played it, and it didn't exist. This thing that they said didn't exist. It's just mind blowing.
But you know, that's the downside of the internet. The plus side is you can spread information really quickly, and you get informed. The downside is that you also can get false information, and it's sometimes hard to verify them. And this is a prime example again how that happened. Outraw about something, and then it turned out that this wasn't even the case, and this is unfortunately happening day in, day out, not only in the gaming industry but generally with pretty much almost every topic on the internet.
Just a question from myself now. The open world, I just have to ask, the forest, right? This is in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2. I'm walking along a forest path, and I notice every little rock, every little bit of water, every nettle is just placed like it's like I've never seen this in a game before. Like, is there anything you guys do? Like how do you do that?
We have, of course, first we are not brushing vegetation. So most of this stuff is actually, well, not. Hand placed is too much of a word. So of course some systems are helping us to say, hey, we say here's a forest, and they start to generate something, but then it's being overhauled by a real human who is then tracking the roads. Okay, where's the characters going, the players, and then make sure that it looks as beautiful as possible. We have a concept art team that makes sure that if there's a pond or whatever, this is how this pond should look like, because this is how usually ponds look like, or how the real pond looks like if there's a real pond. So yes, there's some human activity involved. We have a level art team that is going to the points of interest where we know that players will definitely go. So those are definitely maybe a little bit eventually a little bit nicer than other places, but generally our graphic artists and the environment builders are so proud of these things that there's nothing like a nicer place than another place. They try to make it equally beautiful everywhere. So even the furthest corner in the forest somewhere on the map really looks like it's meant to be there like that. And that's true, actually.
Obviously, I know not every game has to do that. It's something that you guys do. What are your core principles when you make a game? Is there certain things that you stick by and don't refuse to compromise on?
Well, on KCD2, it's pretty much two things. So we want to be, or the three pillars we try to follow is to be as authentic as possible and as immersive as possible. And I think for the designers, for instance, that was the how do I create that quest, that problematic, that situation, that village, or whatever, to be as immersive as possible. And the last but not least, the third is the epic story. But the epic story, or the deep emotional story, let's ignore that for the fact. But the authenticity and the immersiveness are the main, the core of everything that we are building in the game. And I told you before already that we had to balance pretty much daily this realism versus fun gameplay, and we never sacrificed fun gameplay for realism. So we want to make a cool video game, not a like life lesson thing. So when we had to do compromises or bend reality a little bit, then another core element of the studio was to make it, if we have to do something, if we have to go that way, make it at least as plausible as possible, so that nothing is like super out of place. If there's some crazy quest, some funny quest or whatever, then it's still based on some either folklore or some stories from the region or something. Even the craziest things have some kind of like reality to it.
What games did you guys take inspiration from? Any in particular?
I think a groundbreaking game was definitely Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2. These games were really massively sticking in dance, and the developers had, and the designers had, especially I can't remember how we pitched KCD1 back then to Sony and Microsoft. It was something like a slice of Witcher with a bit of Skyrim and a slice of Witcher with a side of Skyrim and Dark Souls sauce or something like this. I can't remember. Some weird food metaphor, but it pretty much sums it up. So The Witcher 3 is amazing when it comes to storytelling, questing, and these kind of thing. And Daniel Barbara was always impressed by that. Skyrim back in the days, there was, or maybe even still, there's no game or almost no game that has this huge exploration, you're going on a huge trip kind of feel to it. This is a bit lacking quest though, and a bit plot and so on, right? So you have that part. And Skyrim, and Dark Souls, our main combat designer is a huge FromSoft fan, so he plays all the games in, day out, and he wanted to have a combat system that is challenging as a Dark Souls, but should be based on those real historical martial arts. So I think those three games or three studios or whatever, those were the biggest inspiration for KCD1, and this pretty much stayed true also in KCD2, while the combat tried to make it a little bit easier than it was before. Or not easier, more accessible than it before. But I think then Red Dead Redemption 2 was a new benchmark for immersive gameplay, I guess. So really, that game really make you feel like you are that outlaw, you are that cowboy in the Wild West and whatnot. So I think again, storytelling, that was a big thing. And of course, last but not least, Baldur's Gate, of course, 3 was a great RPG, a very different RPG than ours, but the way how they sometimes reward creative thinking when it comes to quest solving, that is something that we also took in and tried to make sure that most of the quests in the game can be solved in different ways and sometimes in very creative ways.
And obviously, it's a huge success now, the game, but at the beginning, like, you guys were going to publishers, they were saying, no, it's not fantasy enough, it's too realistic, no, like, how did you guys keep getting up? Like, how do you keep staying motivated despite that feedback and stay confident?
I'd say it's a personality trait of Daniel Vavra. He's a guy who likes to piss against the wind, and this time it really turned out well, and he was so convinced about his idea, plus the feedback we got from Kickstarter. As I said, sink or swim. If that would have failed, if the people wouldn't have it, if it wouldn't be decisive enough, then this would have never. This would be really close the studio and goodbye. So from that point on, we knew we are on the right track. And with the release of KCD1, this was kind of confirmation. Yes, this concept works, right? Not everything was great and had hiccups and whatnot, but this showed that the concept worked. So on that part, we were safe already. And it was, of course, then way easier to talk to publishers, to talk to partners, to talk to anyone, because we said, hey, see KCD1, people like it. There's still no other game like that on the market. There are many RPGs, but I tend to say not any game like KCD, I think. There's many close, but not like KCD. But we had something tangible to show, and now KCD2 is, of course, compared to the first one, way bigger success, of course.
And what's next for Warhorse? Are you allowed to tell me what's in the pipeline?
Well, we released the first DLC. There was a smaller DLC because it was made simultaneously with the release of the game, and then by that the release of the base game had much more priority, of course, because you have to hit that first day. So the first DLC was a bit smaller, or is a bit smaller, but also cheaper than. Now we have DLC 2 and DLC 3 in front of us. They're coming later this year. We want to release them all this year. And those will be much bigger and much more interesting. And now in the second DLC, Henry will kind of go back to his roots and get his own. It's called Legacy of the Forge, and it will be much more blacksmith oriented. I don't want to spoil too much, but it will go back in time in a way.
I just want to say thank you very much for obviously doing this interview. I've been a massive fan. I put over 500 hours in the first game. I don't know how.
Shoot.
I have no idea how. Like, I think I was just practicing the bow all the time. Just to give you guys some feedback. So my wife, she's a gamer, and she didn't play the first Kingdom Come. She looked at it and she said, "Oh, this is too complicated. It's a little bit." And she said, and I got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and she saw me playing it. She said, "Can I get a copy?" I said, "Of course, I'll get it for you." And she's put over 300 hours into it. And she said, "Let's get the Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, which I already owned." She wanted her own copy for Royal. But it just shows you, like, what you guys did was, because it could have gone wrong. Like, you could have made it too easy or too accessible, lost. But somehow people got this game, and not only did they get it, but they said, "I want to go back to the original," and now they enjoy it. So it's just hats off to you guys. It's one of the greatest RPGs.
Well, we saw, this was the hard balance we had when we announced KCD2. This was exactly the like, from a marketing perspective, from my department, this was some of the challenges we were facing. Like, how do we reach the fans of KCD1, but keep in mind that the game was 6 years earlier, so we couldn't rely on them being ready for the second game. So how do we awaken the KCD1 audience? Plus, how do we sell the game to a new audience, or market it to a new audience that either never heard of the first game, or thought that the first game was crap, or thought, it's too hard, I won't even try it. So that was the balancing act, and I think the way how we managed making it all more accessible, not dumping it down, but just make it just feel smoother and nicer and just more fluent and more polished and whatnot, really turned out great. And we saw many cases like your partners, where people in the States, especially in the States, said, "Oh, the first game was weird. I don't know. I got beaten up by the first drunkard in town, and then I immediately dropped it." But they binged through KCD2. So yeah, mission accomplished, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I always said with Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, people might not like it, but as soon as you tell them you're supposed to suck, like that's the
Yeah.
concept, and you get better, then they're like, oh, like, but it's
Yeah,
obviously
but this
new.
is exactly the point. It's like it's very hard to understand for many people that when you meet the first humans or whatever, then they will absolutely kick your butt because you're not meant to be the superhero and fight back. You're meant to be beaten for most of the time, and you have to kind of then grow some balls in a way and train and get better. And now is my time to fight back. But then, as I said, the first game ends, and then the second game is the payback situation. The cool thing, in my opinion, is that you kind of close all open conflicts you had from the first game. You meet Istvan. The only thing that stays open is the Eric thing, but you confront Istvan. You see Marquardt von Aulitz, and what I think is cool and equally genius is that even the bad guys are not pure bad guys. The situation where you meet Marquardt von Aulitz, where he's in a tent, hit by a error from some drunkard. It's like a random error hit the main villain who killed your parents, and he not only recognizes you in a way, but you go in that tent to kill with the intention to kill him, but then you are in a 10 minutes conversation, like deep philosophical conversation about fighting and war and killing and surviving and all of a sudden you feel sad for this guy in front of you, and you question your own morality there and your own decisions and so on. And that is very good writing, in my opinion, and just gives more facets and more casts more light on all the characters. In KCD1, Father Godwin was this drunkard priest in that village there, and the only thing people remember is that one funny cutscene or that one funny quest. But in KCD2, we are painting a much broader picture about him. Who is this guy? Why is he the way he is? And what's his real intention or his real problem? And so on and so on. So that is, I think, cool. And from what we saw and what I see is that people appreciate that.
Yeah, it's the hardest writing to do. Witcher 3 was very good at that gray area, like morally complex. Let the player figure it out. I did have one more question. Sorry. For your country, I mean, it's a national treasure now, right? Since I did videos on your game, the amount of feedback I've had from people who live over there, like, you know, with pictures of the castle, and, you know, they're so passionate about it, and they're so proud of the fact that people like me are like, I want to go there now. You know, like, how do you guys feel about what you've done?
It's a huge honor, and makes us, of course, super proud. The way how, but you know, this is was not intentional. It's not like we're doing this to support tourism here or whatnot, but the way how Kingdom Come became somewhat of a national treasure is really special and hit us also by surprise. The fact that Czech fans or Czech audience are going, for instance, to your videos or to any other video and trying to tell those streamers or content creators, hey, come to the city or come to the country and we will show you around. And they are super proud about. It's just, it's great that a video game managed to be somewhat of a cultural export that represents an entire nation, and that feels weird, but also is kind of cool. We were there is the expo in Tokyo right now, in Osaka in Japan, the World Expo, and the Czech state asked us. We have this side project called KCD Live where they introduce where they offer trips and vacations and whatnot to the real locations of KCD, something like a tourism thing, and they asked them if they could represent Czech Republic on that World Expo and be there for like the tourism part. It's like that's crazy. That's crazy that a video game managed that. There was last week or 2 weeks before, something like that, the Czech prime minister, the government was they visited the town of Kuttenberg. I don't know really why they went there. They had they had some kind of meeting there, whatever. But the mayor of Kuttenberg gave the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, which is the highest political position, a collector's edition of KCD2 as a gift, as a welcome gift, or goodbye gift, or something like that. And it's not like we planned this. This just happened between them, and it's just crazy. It's really sometimes unbelievable. We never planned this, but we are happily taking it and supporting it. And if we can, hey, it's cool that the Czech Republic can do more than just beer and glass. We saw your stuff. I saw your stuff, naming us among possible GOTYs, which is great. But you know, the thing is, we don't want to jinx it. So let's see where this goes. I'm really happy that the game, the way how not only Czech people but also outside people, like content creators and players generally, got so invested into KCD and started to really paint those fan fictions and do all these memes and stories and whatnot, really is heartwarming. And this is why we make the games, not because of awards, but because of the feedback of the people. And it's good to work on a game where you feel appreciation from the other side, which makes this discussion before the release of the game even more ridiculous.
And there you have it. The story of a studio who love video games and love their fans as well. I think it speaks volumes that the way I managed to get this interview was due to the fact that Sir Tobi had seen one of my videos, which shows that the studio always look at what their fans are saying, and the fact that he even agreed to do this interview and take time out of his busy schedule to speak with me shows they constantly want to give back to their fans. In my opinion, Warhorse have all the ingredients necessary to be one of the most successful studios in gaming, and I'm sure they will continue to produce quality projects in the years to come. I want to take the time to say thank you to Sir Tobi for doing this interview, and say thank you to you, dear viewer, for watching this video to the end. Anyway, that about wraps this one up. If you enjoyed this video, please give it the thumbs up, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'm AAA Gaming, where we do video game analysis, identifying what makes great games great and what could make good games great as well. Thanks for watching. AAA out.